We are live. Hey, how's it going? It is Lee Hayward here with a Total Fitness Bodybuilding live video Q&A for Friday, May 25th. So the way this works is for the next hour, I'm going to be hanging out here and answering any questions that you may have with regards to bodybuilding, fitness, exercise, and nutrition, any specific challenges that you are dealing with when it comes to your bodybuilding, muscle building, and fat loss goals. Please feel free to post those in our chat window, and I'll do my best to help you out in any way that I can during our chat today. So as always, before I get into answering your questions, I always like to do that audio and video check. So please, if you are tuning in right now and it's coming through loud and clear, just let me know in the comment section, just so I can proceed with our video chat, feeling confident that I'm actually coming through loud and clear. So while you're doing that and while you're posting in any questions that you would like me to cover, I'm just going to get a couple things organized from my end, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. And I got to say, man, it is freezing cold here today. As crazy as it is, we had snow yesterday. I kid you not, we had snow on the 24th of May. And that's always a kind of a cliche, right? You know, you're going to get snow on the 24th of May weekend. Well, we didn't have it on the weekend past, but we certainly got it yesterday. So it's crazy. We had snow on the 24th of May, and it's still cold and wet out there today. So that's why I'm kind of bundled up here, because it's it's not a warm spring day, put it that way. All right, so just give me a second, guys. I'm getting things organized here on my end. Right. Okay, we're coming through loud and clear, loud and clear. Thank you. I do appreciate it. Okay, let's just get this underway. All right. So we have Ahmed is joining us. Says, Lee, you're a beast. Well, I don't know about that, but thanks. I'm going to take that as a compliment. So thanks for that. Mark saying it's coming through loud and clear. Thanks, Mark. We have Azim joining us, loud and clear. Jonathan's joining us. Woodulos is joining us. We have John Doe, an anonymous John Doe is joining us. Jack Fishin, 27. Sounds good. Says he's tuning in from deep South Texas. Corey is joining us. Sir Games a Lot all day is joining us, and he has a question. What is the best, cheapest meal for bulking? All right, good question. And a lot of the regulars to the channel probably know that I made a video a while back covering bodybuilding on a budget, and it basically covered some meal options that you can look into, some food options, I should say, when you're trying to meet your bodybuilding nutrition needs on a budget. And it's actually my most popular YouTube video. It has over 3 million views, which is crazy because my videos don't normally get that many views if you're a regular to my channel. So it's my most popular video, and I am going to make an updated version of that video because it was kind of it wasn't that well planned out, actually. I literally went through the grocery store with a little handheld camera and just made a video on the fly talking about different options that you could buy that were inexpensive or not as expensive, I should say, as some other options, and just some tips that you can use to help save some money on a bodybuilding diet. So I'm going to make an updated video about that, but I'm going to give you some guidelines. I mean, first off, when it comes to bulking, I don't want you to fall into the category of the dirty bulk, you know, the seafood, eat food. I don't want you to do that, because even though it can work in the short term, ultimately it's not a very healthy option, and chances are you're going to probably gain more body fat than you would like. Now, depending on your individual metabolism, you may be able to stay fairly lean, especially if you're like a skinny hard gainer. But most people are probably going to pack on a lot of excess body fat if they eat a dirty bulk, meaning just a high-calorie junk food, you know, pizza, burgers, fries, ice cream, cake, cookies, whatever you can just to get the calories up. I mean, that works for gaining weight, but it's not quality weight. So stick to good, wholesome foods, and some good ones that you can focus on. I mean, when it comes to protein, chicken, fish, beef, eggs, dairy, all those are good options. And you can usually get away fairly cheap with a lot of those things. I mean, when it comes to beef, for example, you don't need to buy the expensive cuts of beef. You can buy like ground hamburger beef. That works just as fine. I mean, nutritionally, it's the same thing as the more expensive cuts of beef, except it's already ground up for you. Now, granted, it may have a bit higher fat content depending on the type of beef you buy, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're bulking. As far as chicken, if you go for the dark meat, a lot of times that's cheaper than chicken breasts. And again, it's a little higher in fat, but that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're bulking. So things like chicken thighs, chicken wings, that kind of stuff can be a cheap source of protein when you're bulking. Fish, like tuna fish, I mean, it's cheap. I know it doesn't taste that great, but it is a cheap source of protein. It can be used when you're bulking or cutting. Really doesn't matter. It's a good lean source of protein. Any type of fish, you can pretty much, whatever goes. I mean, you can shop around, whatever's on sale. A lot of times buying frozen fish, like frozen fillets, is often cheaper than buying it fresh. That applies for a lot of foods, actually. Like frozen veggies are often cheaper than fresh veggies. Frozen berries are often cheaper than fresh berries. Frozen fruit cheaper than fresh fruit. And of course, it often lasts longer. So if you're trying to save some money, go for frozen produce more than the fresh produce, and you can very often get larger quantities for less money. And of course, it's going to last longer as well. As far as your carbohydrates, this is where you can really get some cheap carbs. I mean, oatmeal. You can buy great big bags of oatmeal, very cheap. Big bags of rice, pasta, that kind of stuff. You can stock up on that, and the good thing about it, it's not going to go bad. So you can buy it in bulk, and it doesn't matter if it's sitting in the cupboard for months. It's not going to go bad. You can have that stuff on hand, and it's very cheap. Other things you can look into: potatoes. You know, any type of potato. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, but that's a fairly inexpensive I was going to say protein source, carbohydrate source. Those are some good options. I mean, I just think of the basic wholesome foods. So every time you sit down to a meal, you want to think of protein, carbs, and veggies. Protein, carbs, and veggies. When I say veggies, it could be fruit and veggies, especially when you're bulking. You know, it's okay to get a bit of extra sugar and calories from fruit, but always think of it that your plate in thirds. So you want to have 1/3 protein, 1/3 fruit and veggie, 1/3 starchy carbohydrate. And if you do that, that's going to give you a well-rounded macronutrient ratio that's going to be ideal for bulking. And again, those suggestions for the foods will certainly help to allow you to do so while on a budget. You know, you're not going to break your bank account with those foods that I mentioned. Martin is joining us from the wet and windy UK. I can relate. It's wet and windy here today as well. We're just on the other side of the pond here in Newfoundland, and we get very similar weather as what you do in the UK, except I would say it's even colder and sometimes wetter. We have Jack Fishin saying it's 106 in Texas. Holy man. Ain't no 106 here today, I can tell you that. Woodulos joining us from Scotland. What's the oldest training log you have, and do you still read them over? Oh, I have workout logs from back in the mid-90s. I don't have them here. They're over at my parents' house, actually, over in the original home gym that I started training at. And I made a video about this last year or the year before, gave a little virtual tour of the home gym because it's still there. It's still over at my parents' house. Now it's kind of turned into more of a storage room than anything else, but it's still there. All the old homemade equipment that I started with. And there's a cardboard box over there somewhere in that gym that has all my workout logs from way back when. And I'm talking about back in the 90s. So I don't know the exact date or when, but I used to keep them all. And all I did was just exercise books, you know, the same type of exercise books that you would take to school to, you know, write your notes in and stuff like that. I used those exercise books and filled out dozens upon dozens of them, and I kept them all. And so I should probably see if I can dig them out sometime and just, you know, go through them. It'd be a cool YouTube video, just kind of thumb through them and see some of the workouts that I was doing and things like that. So I'll probably do that in the future. But yeah, it's definitely some old ones there for sure. I haven't looked at them for a while, but yeah, something I would like to do again. Thanks for bringing that up. Okay, what other questions we have? We have Neelan joining us. Greetings from South Africa. He says, you inspire us all. Keep up the great work, Lee. Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate the comment. Wood Yulos is saying it's cold over in Scotland today. Must be a cold stretch going across the Atlantic. AG 1185. How's it going, Lee? Wondering some tips on breaking through cutting plateaus when diet and training are on point. All right, this is a good one. I was actually having this discussion just the other day with a personal coaching student of mine who has been very strict with a cutting diet, following a low-calorie diet, consistent with his workouts, consistent with his cardio, and been doing so for the past 3 months, made really good progress during that time, but now I would say for the last month, he hasn't made any progress. So he made most of his progress in the first 2 months, and then he was just keep doing what he's doing. But for the last month, it's just kind of like been flatlined. No further fat loss. And we were having a detailed discussion about his program, and he's down to like very low calories, like 1,500 calories a day, while combining that with weight training and cardio on top of it. So I mean, it's not that from eating too much. That's not the reason why he's hit a plateau. It's probably the opposite. And we're going to try some different strategies. And one of the strategies is to introduce a carb cycle diet where you purposely go through phases of higher calories, phases of maintenance calories, and then phases of a calorie deficit. And this is a very effective strategy for speeding up fat loss once you've hit a plateau. And the reason for this is because fat loss and your calorie consumption, it's not like a mathematical formula. I mean, obviously, a lot of people go and they'll calculate out their macros and calculate out their basic caloric intake. That's what I meant to say. They calculate out their daily caloric intake and say, okay, well, what's my maintenance calories? And then they'll say, well, how much do I need to reduce that in order to burn fat? The problem with that is your body isn't a machine. It's not like you put in X amount of calories in and then the next amount of calories come out. It has a lot of different factors that come into play, and your metabolism will literally speed up or slow down depending on your diet. So if you eat a high calorie diet, your body will actually speed up its metabolism. It speeds up the metabolic hormones. The digestion process speeds up. I mean, it speeds up to handle that abundance of calories. If you restrict your calories, your metabolism will slow down. It'll slow down because there's not enough food coming in, and it wants to conserve energy. So our metabolism and metabolic hormones are constantly in flux. They're not stable like a lot of people think. You know, people calculate out their caloric intake and they say, well, my maintenance calories is, say, 2,200 calories. So I'll just pluck a number from here. It may be 2,200 calories at some point, but if you increase your calories, then your maintenance is going to change. If you decrease your calories, then your maintenance is going to change. So it's all just kind of like an educated guess. You know, we do this to kind of put ourselves on the right track, but then you need to constantly be tweaking and modifying your program based on how your body responds. So that's why I'm a big fan of going through a carbohydrate calorie cycle diet. Now, I call it a carbohydrate cycle diet, and it is going to be varying in calories as well. But the main macronutrient that we're going to vary is the carbs. Protein is going to stay pretty constant. Fat will stay pretty constant. And we're just going to cycle carbohydrates, have high carb days, medium carb days, and low carb days. And by going through this rotation, it works really well for helping to keep your metabolic rate high, and you'll help to replenish glycogen and rebuild muscle during those high carb days. And then when you dip into the medium and low carb days, you'll really help to tap into burning stored body fat for energy. And you constantly go through that in a nonstop cycle over and over again, week after week. And it works really well. It's almost like a build and burn type program, because you can actually increase or, you can actually increase your lean muscle mass initially. If you really push the fat loss envelope, the very least is going to be maintaining your lean muscle mass as you burn body fat. So it's a very effective strategy, one that I use a lot with my personal coaching students. And that's something that you can look into for yourself if you're stuck in a fat loss plateau. And if you would like to discuss this with me in more detail and probably like your own specific situation, then just head on over to my website at leehayward.com. And there's a link there for coaching. And You can read about the different coaching programs that I offer. But in addition to that, I also offer a free 20-minute phone coaching. So if you want to just jump on the phone or jump on Skype or whatever, we can actually have a quick chat about your specific program and cover some strategies that you can follow, help get through the plateaus that you're stuck in and move yourself in the right direction. So again, if you're interested in that, just head on over to my website, leehayward.com, and click on the coaching link that's in the top menu bar. Let's move on. Try to get through some more questions. I know once I get talking about a topic, I can ramble on a lot. Rambling on a lot. I don't know. Maybe it's good. Maybe it's bad. I guess we all have our own opinion on that. Sometimes I know my wife wishes that I'd shut up. But obviously, you guys must enjoy it. You wouldn't be here watching me and listening to me if you didn't enjoy it. So again, thanks for your support. Let's move on. We have Rise Entity. What's your thoughts on Bulgarian training? The whole idea of the Bulgarian training is like high frequency mini workouts, and I've incorporated different styles of that. One program, a bodybuilding program that was very popular that emphasized a lot of Bulgarian style of training is, I have it right here, Big Beyond Belief. This is an old classic. Anybody who's been around bodybuilding for many, many years will remember this. This book is copyright 1994. That's around the time when I was getting serious about bodybuilding. Like I started competing in 95, and I got this book when it first came out, and it goes into a lot of the Bulgarian training principles of short, frequent workouts, training muscle groups very frequently, sometimes like 3 times a week or more. Again, depending on the program. There's a whole bunch of different styles of programs in this book, but I found it very effective. I mean, as long as you keep your volume under control, you can make really good gains with short, frequent workouts. And again, you can train your body parts a lot more frequent than you would think, as long as you keep the volume under control. And that's the key. You can't be going in doing these 20 set per body part workouts and think you're going to do, you know, train each muscle group 3 or more times a week, training 20 plus sets. It's not going to work that way. But if you go in there and do, say, like 5 sets per body part, then, hey, you could train it literally like every other day, or even sometimes more frequently than that, depending on the type of training you're following and your own individual fitness level. So it's definitely, it has merits. And if you're stuck with, you know, you're following a typical bodybuilding bro split and you want to try something different, hey, go for it. Give it a shot and see how it works. Good. John is joining us. John Doe from Oregon saying, utilizing dumbbells or body weight only and no bench. What exercises would you suggest for building chest and thickening upper arms? I've got a video that will cover exactly what you want. Go to my main YouTube channel page, open up the playlists, and there's a section there for dumbbell workouts. And I've got several workouts using dumbbells only. I mean, obviously the playlist is dumbbells only, but it usually focuses on just dumbbells and body weight exercises. But there is a home gym chest and bicep workout, and all I'm using there is a set of adjustable dumbbells. No bench, no nothing. And I did it in my rec room. And what I used for a bench is I literally stacked up the cushions off my sofa. And I got on that. And that was enough to elevate my back a little bit off the floor so that I could go through and do like dumbbell bench presses and dumbbell flies and things like that without using a proper bench. Now, it's obviously it's a bit rough and off the cuff, but it works. I mean, you can definitely train that way. And when I was getting started, I did a lot of basic workouts just using dumbbells only. I mean, before I got my official home gym that I started with, it was just a set of the York adjustable dumbbells and barbells. And that's what I started with. So I'd do like push-ups and sit-ups and squats and barbell curls and rows and you know, all kinds of exercises with the free weights. But I never had a bench to use. So I'd make, you know, just make up stuff, doing floor exercises and whatever. You can even probably get creative and make some of your own equipment out of wood. I mean, the very first squat rack that I ever owned was one made out of 2x4, and I nailed it and screwed it together, and it was solid enough. I mean, it served my purpose for getting started, and that's how I learned how to squat, was with a wooden squat rack made out of 2x4. You know, so it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can just start with the bare bones basic, and as long as you're consistent, you can make progress. But again, getting back to your question, go check out the playlist, the dumbbell workouts playlist. That's on my main YouTube channel page. Manmeet, I can't pronounce your last name, Sapathi, I think, Manmeet Sapathi. What's the main thing which gets developed so that our muscles grow? What's the main thing which gets developed so that our muscles grow? I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. I mean, in order to stimulate muscle growth, it requires three things. It requires training in order to actually stimulate the muscle and give it a reason to grow bigger and stronger. It's going to require proper nutrition in order to fuel that muscle growth. And then it's going to take adequate recovery to allow your muscles time to rest and recover between workouts. And of course, you have to be consistent in order to allow this process to happen over and over again. So, I mean, it's a combination of training, nutrition, and recovery and consistency over the long term. Now, I know that's kind of vague, but I'm not 100% sure on what you're asking with your question. So if you want to try and elaborate on that, you can, but quite honestly, I may not get to all the questions. So I hope I covered some of your answer anyway. We have Moises Escobar. What's up, Lee? Been stuck on a 315 back squat for 2 weeks now. What's a good way to get out of this plateau and increase weight? Much love from Maryland. First of all, 2 weeks in a plateau is not that long. You know, I mean, that's if you're been making progress as frequently as that, that's really good, actually. So, I mean, a 315-pound squat is respectable. I mean, you go into the gym, there's not a lot of people squatting over 315. I mean, it depends what kind of gym you go to. I mean, obviously, there are going to be power lifters or advanced bodybuilders, but most normal gym goers, first off, they probably don't even squat. And if they do squat, not many of them are squatting with more than 3 plates aside. So the fact that you're doing that, I mean, give yourself a pat on the back. I mean, that's good progress. Now, as far as ways to improve that, there are a lot of strategies, and I actually have a video. It's still not edited yet. I just got the raw footage, but it covers tips for improving your back squat, and it covers 3 specific exercises that you can follow. And I'm going to be working on that video. I should have it uploaded by next week, so that will definitely help you. But some tips that you can use in the meantime, if you are really stuck on that. Try doing heavy power rack lockouts. And what I mean by this is set the safety pins in the power rack so that you're only doing a quarter squat. And I actually like to put the barbell right on the safety pins when I'm doing this exercise. And I'll start from the bottom up. So I'll literally get under the bar and squat the weight off the pins and then lower it down back onto the pins. And when you're doing a quarter squat off the pins like this, you should be able to squat a fair bit more than you can with a regular full range of motion squat. I mean, a conservative estimate would be 25% more, and is probably even as much as 50% more weight than what you can do for a full ass to grass full range of motion squat. So that's something that you can do. And what you'll find is by doing the power rack lockouts, you get accustomed to handling heavier weight. Even though you're not going through full range of motion, your body is still supporting that weight. You're still, you know, your back, all your hips and glutes and everything, and your core still has to support all that weight. And you get used to what it feels like to have a lot more weight on your back. And it just helps to build up confidence. And if you combine that with regular full range of motion training, it can help to build up your strength from both ends. So you're building up your overload top end strength and building confidence handling heavier weight, as well as building up the ability to squat through a full range of motion. So that's one strategy that you can implement. But I think you'll really like this video that I have coming up very soon. Like I say, I should have it, I'll do the editing and all that over the next few days, and I should have it uploaded next week. But it's 3 exercises, and they don't even require squatting, but they are squat variations that will really help to bring up a stubborn squat that's stuck in a plateau. All right, another question here. By the way, I found out how to join your Inner Circle coaching club. 100%. Much thanks, and looking forward to your programs. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you decided to join the Inner Circle, and I'm looking forward to following along with your training. So again, welcome to the club. David's joining us. He says, Lee, you are the best. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. What are your thoughts on Wendler's 5-3-1 program versus a typical body part split? I'm a big fan of multiple different styles of training, and if you followed along with my programs in the past and you've tuned into other video chats, you've probably heard me say this before, but I like to cycle my training, and I will cycle from a power style training to maybe a bodybuilding bro split to a conditioning style training to maybe a more frequent bodybuilding split to another power training, and just keep cycling through different methods and different modalities. And what you'll find is when you switch, you're going to make a new growth spurt each time. So, for example, let's just say you were following a typical bodybuilding body part split routine, and you've been following that for several weeks or several months, made some good gains with it, but now you're getting to the point where either you're getting bored with the workout or the progress is just not there anymore. You know, it kind of feels like you're just going through the motions and you're not really seeing any further progress. Once that happens, then you can change it up. And that would be a great time to throw in something like that 5-3-1 program, you know, a good power building strength program. Follow that until that program runs its course. I mean, you know, stick it out for 4, 6, 8 weeks or however long you can until your strength starts to plateau. Once that happens, then try and switch it up and do something else. I mean, maybe you do another program, something like maybe a German volume training program where you're going to work on increasing your work capacity through high volume training. So, I mean, you can go through all kinds of different training programs and you'll make progress each time you switch and go through the new program. And this is the basis of the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Workout of the Month program. I mean, every month I provide a unique program that builds on the progress from the previous month's program, and they're complementary. So if we did a power training program one month, well, then we might do a bodybuilding training program the next month, and then do some sort of conditioning training the following month, and then go through the cycle again with another power training program, then another bodybuilding program, then another conditioning program. And you'll find that each time you switch it up, not only is it fun and enjoyable because you're doing different exercises and different modalities of training, but you'll make better progress over the long term than if you just try to do the same thing week in, week out over the course of the year. So that's the way I like to structure it. All right, we have a Chief Backwood saying pizza and chicken wings on the regular. Pizza and chicken wings on the regular. All right. Pizza and chicken wings on the regular. Well, that sounds like a dirty Balkan diet. Azim's asking, says, Lee, my question is regarding food plateaus. Is it real or just a myth? Because I believe you said on various occasions that end eating the same thing over and over again. That you end up eating the same thing over and over again. Food plateaus. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that, but food plateau. Well, you could have a diet plateau if that's what you're referring to, where, like, let's say you're trying to bulk up and you're eating the same high calorie foods and you get to the point where you make real good gains initially, and then eventually it's just like you're not making gains like you used to, and probably even starting to gain a bit of excess body fat, or vice versa when you're following a cutting program. You're losing weight initially, but then you get to a plateau where it's just not progressing any further. Now, if you want, you could try some different foods. There's nothing wrong with that, experimenting with different food choices. And I do like to, try different foods from time to time. So, I mean, if you're always eating chicken for your protein, then, hey, switch it up. Try fish or try beef or try some game meat or bison or, whatever you have available. I mean, you can try different sources of protein, same with different sources of carbs, different fat, different vegetables. And I mean, sometimes that can help as well. Especially if you have any food intolerances or food allergies, because sometimes we may not necessarily know it, but if you have any food intolerances or allergies, this can sometimes hinder your progress. especially when it comes to fat loss. I mean, if you're eating a food that you have a slight intolerance or a slight allergic reaction to, that may make you retain weight and water and look bloated and puffy. And if you were to eliminate that food, you might notice an instant improvement in terms of like losing a lot of bloat and excess water weight. And sometimes you can even lose fat as well, because if there's any, sometimes your body will actually store toxins in the body fat. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods and foods that are, not the best for you, and you switch that to some natural unprocessed foods, and you're getting rid of a lot of toxic buildup in your system, then a lot of times you'll lose weight that way. And it's because the fat is like a buffer for a lot of toxins. So you can very often store toxins in your body fat. And if you eliminate the toxins and do a detox, that you'll often lose a lot of weight and a lot of fat weight as well, because your body can release it from the fat stores. So there, I guess if that's what you're referring to in terms of food plateaus, I mean, yeah, it can definitely be an issue. And I would encourage you to, first off, focus on natural, unprocessed foods as often as possible, and be open to trying different foods. When you go to like the produce section and you're looking around, chances are there are vegetables in the produce section that you may have never, ever touched before. So, I mean, feel free to experiment with those. Feel free to experiment with different protein foods and different vegetables and different healthy fats and all that kind of stuff. If you have access to a farmer's market, go and see what's in season and just try and experiment and see what different foods are available. Unfortunately, the way most people are is we like to think we have a lot of eating variety, but if you actually recorded what you eat, it's the same basic stuff over and over again. Like if you look at what you eat week to week to week, a lot of times you're eating the same foods and the same type of meals just over and over again. You might have like maybe a dozen different meals or a dozen different foods that you eat, and it's just a constant recycling of those over and over. So it's nice to sometimes think outside the box and try some different foods. And very often in doing so, you may find some new favorites for yourself. All right, let's move on and see if we can answer some more questions. We have Trinidex XVI. Okay. Hey, should I stay on my diet that I use to should stay on my diet that I use, which was 1,500 calories diet. I've lost at least 20 pounds twice in about 3 months, and I'm about 210 pounds. Is it bad to be on that much of a deficit? All right, 1,500 calorie a day diet at 210-pound body weight. I think that's a bit of the extreme side of a calorie deficit. I wouldn't recommend that for a long-term calorie deficit. I would be more, I would encourage you to probably implement some sort of calorie/carbohydrate cycle. And I actually mentioned this in one of the previous questions, one of the first questions that I discussed during this video chat. So I'm not going to basically repeat myself, but if you want, you can actually rewind this video and go back and see that, or you can wait till I post the replay and I'll actually post the timestamp to that specific question where you can hear how I would recommend structuring your diet to optimize fat loss through a carbohydrate/calorie cycle diet. Nihimaz Pre. Again, I'm not familiar with these names. I'm sorry if I'm screwing up your names, guys, but I'll get to your question. We have Nimas Anton. Nimas Predit Anton. Should I choose a full body bulk up workout or a 4-day upper lower body split? Since I have kids, not much time. I work out 4 days a week. Try to keep it within an hour max. Okay, full body bulk up workout or 4-day. You know what? You can try both. What I would recommend, if you're just starting out, go with a full body routine. Just a full body workout done like every other day. That's plenty. And I have a sample total body workout that you can follow right on the main Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. Just scroll down and there's a section there with beginner workouts. And there's one, it's a total body beginner's workout. And this is a really good program. Even though it's a beginner's program, even intermediate and advanced lifters can follow it as well. I mean, I often go back to it, or I'll do that when I'm pressed for time. If I only say like got 45 minutes and I want to get in and out of the gym really quick, and a lot of times I'll do that routine, just a little total body workout, basically just hitting one major exercise per movement pattern. So we got horizontal pull, horizontal press, vertical pull, vertical press, leg press, arm curl, arm extension, and some core work. Boom. I mean, you got everything done. Just one exercise per movement pattern, a few sets each. You can be in and out of the gym very quick, but it's efficient, because you're still hitting all your major muscle groups, and you can still train in a progressive overload fashion, and you can still make gains with that program. And then when you get to the point where you're either getting bored of it because you're doing the same workout day in, day out, and you want to change it up, that's when you can probably try like an upper lower body split or some sort of body part split routine. But you can still modify and manipulate your workouts in such a way as that you're in and out of the gym in less than an hour. There's no excuse for not being able to get a good workout in an hour or less, especially if you are disciplined and you are efficient. And what I mean by that is you're not dilly-dallying when you go into the gym. You're not talking to people and resting 4 or 5 minutes between sets and yakking and all that kind of stuff. If you just go in there with the focus of having a good workout, you can get a damn good workout done in less than an hour. All right, let's move on. Let's see what else we have. Trinidx is saying, people say it's bad, but it's helped me accomplish my goals. What would your thoughts be on this? Okay, sorry, that's a follow-up to his diet question, which again I am going to refer to the calorie carbohydrate cycle diet. That's what I'm going to recommend. Lee, can you make a series on 10x10 training method? It was mentioned in the last Q&A. Sounds pretty darn interesting. I can, but I'll tell you right now, if you want to see a sample 10x10 program right now, we have one on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle coaching club. That was one of our previous workout of the month programs, was German volume training. You can also just Google search German volume training. I mean, there's a lot of variations of this program. We have a couple variations on the Inner Circle. We have one which was kind of like a volume ramping program, where it started off with higher volume, and then as the program progressed, we gradually lower the volume and increase the intensity. And then we have another variation of it, which is the more traditional 10x10 German volume training program. So we actually have two variations of that right on the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Inner Circle. So if you want, you can check that out. But I can also look into a future video series, because I love making workout series like that, but it takes a lot of time and effort to make them, especially now, because I'm trying to put more effort into my videos. In the past, when I would make a workout video, I kind of did it very quickly. I mean, I just shoot one set of an exercise from one angle, and I mean, it got the message across, but it wasn't very visually entertaining, and I guess at the same time, it didn't show the exercise from multiple angles. Whereas now, if you notice, like my most recent training series that I posted up, the upper lower body rotational split, I put a lot of time into that, and I shot it from multiple different camera angles so that you can see each exercise from different positions and get a more well-rounded view of the workout. And it's also more visually stimulating to watch as well, rather than just seeing, the same move for like, a couple minutes in a row, and then another camera angles just steady for another couple minutes. I try and keep it moving, more fast-paced, and also make it more entertaining and more educational at the same time. So you can look at it as infotainment. I want it to be informative, and I want it to be entertaining, so it's infotaining. So I'm trying to kind of step up my video production a little bit, and so it does take a lot longer to make a video that way, but I think the end result is worth it, because again, it's a better quality video, and I feel better about it, and the feedback that I get from them tends to be much more positive as well. But yeah, I'll definitely look into making that as a future video series. Mark is joining us, and he says, how do you balance a high protein intake without high cholesterol? Seems to be lots of high protein items have high cholesterol, including whey protein, meat, and tuna fish. What do you recommend? This is a controversial topic, but I'm going to dive right in. Cholesterol is not as bad as the mainstream media make it out to be. First off, your body needs cholesterol. Cholesterol is required for a lot of functions in your body. It's required for producing hormones and metabolic processes in the body. So you need cholesterol. In fact, if you eat a low cholesterol diet, your body will manufacture its own cholesterol to get what it needs for optimal function. So if you eat a diet that contains dietary cholesterol, your body doesn't need to manufacture as much cholesterol to meet what it needs. If you ate as close to a zero cholesterol diet as you could, your body is still going to pump out cholesterol because it needs it in order to function properly. So there's a big misunderstanding when it comes to cholesterol. I mean, dietary cholesterol doesn't always equal cholesterol that builds up in your arteries and causes heart attacks. It's not a direct correlation, because you'll look at people who eat high-fat diets, like a ketogenic diet, for example. I mean, some people eat a very high-fat, moderate protein diet, like a keto diet, and they actually see improvements in their cholesterol levels and their triglycerides and everything else, because when you're in that state and you're not burning carbohydrates for fuel, your body's actually burning the fat for fuel, and it can do so very efficiently once you get into that mode. So dietary cholesterol and dietary fat doesn't always equal cholesterol buildup in the plaque or excess body fat around the waist. It's a lot more complex than that. But to kind of answer your question, as long as you're eating moderate amounts of protein, and what I consider moderate amounts is, say, like, shoot for about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass per day, and you're doing so with relatively lean sources of protein. Like if you're eating meat, try and trim off any excess fat from that meat. When you're like whey protein and stuff like that, try and go for like a whey isolate, or either a whey blend of a concentrate and an isolate, which has some of the fat and lactose removed. And when you're eating chicken, like remove the skin, things like that. If you're taking those type of precautions to minimize the fat intake from a lot of your protein foods, then you can eat them in moderation without any issues with cholesterol. And just kind of use myself as an example, I get my cholesterol checked on a regular basis when I get my physical checkups done, and I eat a lot of, well, I guess it's all relative in terms of it, but I usually shoot for about 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body mass per day as a minimum. And I'm eating foods like meat and chicken and fish and eggs on a regular basis, and my cholesterol is always in the normal or even in the low normal range. So it's not a direct correlation. So a lot of it is actually genetics, but anyway, that's a topic for another video, but that's what I recommend. Okay, another question here from Nihamas saying, after having finished bulking, can I maintain the weight over the year, or do I have to bulk up, then cut at a certain time of the year and repeat the cycle, bulking, cutting, bulking, cutting, bulking, cutting? No, you don't have to go through bulking and cutting. In fact, I would recommend more people to focus on the maintenance. And when I say maintenance, I'm not talking about like literally maintaining and doing nothing. Focus on recomposition, meaning you can build lean muscle while burning body fat simultaneously with proper training and nutrition. As long as you're doing everything in the proper order, consistent with your weight training, consistent with your cardio, consistent with your nutrition, you can make progress in terms of adding lean muscle mass and simultaneously burning off body fat. The only time when bulking and cutting really come into play is for more advanced athletes or competitive bodybuilders who are trying to cut for competition and then bulk up in the off season. That's different. And most of us, unless you're a competitive bodybuilder, are not even going to need to get to that phase. I would recommend this maintenance recomposition type of training for most people, rather than alternating bulking, cutting, bulking, cutting. And I think it'll be a lot healthier, and it's more easy to maintain. I mean, when you look at the way bodybuilding diet is structured, it's no fun to bulk and stuff yourself, and it's no fun to diet and starve yourself. It's more fun and enjoyable to be kind of in the middle, where you're eating a comfortable amount of food. Now, if you're eating the right foods, followed up by the right training, then you can actually recomposition, meaning you're building muscle and burning body fat simultaneously. And that's where I recommend most people to try and focus their efforts rather than bulking and cutting. Save those advanced strategies for like competitive bodybuilders or athletes or somebody who actually needs to go through those phases. But for the average fitness enthusiast, you know, the recreational bodybuilder who's not competing, you don't need to do that. Chief Blackwood says, what would be a more intensive training program other than boxing? Okay, well, boxing is pretty intense training, but it's I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. Do you mean like a sport? I mean, if you want, you could say, well, maybe MMA is more intense than boxing because it's more diverse. I'm not really sure what you mean by that. So if you want to elaborate on it, please feel free to do so. But again, what would be more intense than boxing? You can make any program as intense as you want, depending on how much effort you put into it. I mean, if you go to like a boxing gym and you bust your ass and you keep your rest intervals short and everything else, you can have a very intense boxing workout. Speaking of that, back in the day, now this is quite a while back, well, relatively, around 2006, I did some boxing and MMA and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I did that for a while. And it was a fun change of pace. I enjoyed it, but I was getting a lot of injuries, especially from the jiu-jitsu, you know, getting into the different submissions and holds. I found that I was getting a lot of injuries. And it just pulled muscles and strained joints and tendons and all that kind of stuff. So after about a year, I kind of just laid off it because I have no intentions of, you know, getting in the ring or anything like that. I was just doing it as a kind of a change of pace, as a fun experiment with my training. So I decided to do that for a while. But, you know, when you're getting injured on a regular basis, it takes the fun out of it. So I basically just quit and went back to going to the gym, lifting weights, doing cardio, that kind of stuff. At least there, I'm in control of what happens. You know, if I get injured, it's my own fault if I do something stupid in the gym. But when you're sparring and grappling, you're not always in control, because if somebody twists you into a pretzel and, you know, yanks or jerks your arm or leg a certain way, then, you know, you could pull or strain a tendon and, you know, you have no control over that. So that's why I decided to step away from the martial arts world. We have Jinx joining us. How low can you go calorie wise during a cut without losing too much muscle? That's going to vary from person to person. I can't give you a specific number because there's too many variables involved, but I'm going to kind of throw out a general guideline. 10 calories per pound of body weight would be my minimum that I would try and strive for. If you're going lower than that, it should only be for a very short term, like say a bodybuilder trying to peak for competition or something like that. But 10 calories per pound of body weight will be a very low calorie cutting diet, in my opinion. Okay, Look HTH says, what do you think about SARMs, in particular LGD4033? Quite honestly, I don't know what LGD4033 is. As far as SARMs, I've heard of them. Haven't really done a whole lot of research about them, and I've never tried them, so I really don't have much to offer about SARMs. It's kind of this gray area bodybuilding performance enhancing drug / supplement. So I mean, you can go on Google and go on the forums and everything else, and you will get a lot more information than I can offer you about SARMs. But I've never used them personally, so I really don't have any feedback to offer. You know, you'll do much better off if you spend the next 20 minutes Google searching. You could get a lot more information than what I could offer. So sorry I couldn't be more helpful, but that's just the way it is. Jeffrey is joining us, and he says, Lee, is it a bad thing to do 5 sets of 5 on shoulders, legs, and bench press while working 3 sets of 10 on pec deck, lat pull downs, biceps, triceps, all in the same workout? No, that's actually a very good thing to do. I mean, you can manipulate your sets and reps based on the exercises. And I mean, there's pros and cons to all set and rep patterns. You can make gains with high reps, low reps, high sets, low sets. I mean, it really depends on the program you're following. But a good general guideline is to do heavier weight, lower reps for your big compound lifts. So again, your bench presses, your overhead presses, squats, deadlifts, those big compound lifts. It's okay to do, say, like a 5x5 program with those. And then for your isolation exercises, your pull downs and your biceps and triceps and things like that, it's okay to do higher reps, in that 10 rep range for those exercises. And that's very often what I'll do myself. I like to do heavier weights, lower reps for the big moves, lighter weights and higher reps for the isolation moves. And I find that it works really well. We have one badass Croatian joining us, and that's his username. I'm not saying anything to be offensive here by calling him a badass, but one badass Croatian says, "Hello guys from Croatia. Love your videos, Lee. Thanks for the support. Glad to have you joining us." Next question. This one's from Slick Willie Clifton. Says, "I use a 4-day split of push-pull, legs off. Whenever I hear this split described, it's always described as push-pull, legs off. Why do upper body workouts on consecutive day hard on shoulders?" You can change that up. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But the thing is, if you're doing your pushing exercises one day and then your pulling exercises the next, you're not putting the same strain on the shoulders, because you look, okay, you're doing a bench press, you're doing a shoulder press, you're doing whatever, your tricep work, that's pressing exercises for the shoulders. When you're doing the pulling, that's working in the complete opposite direction. So you're working the complete opposite plane of motion. So very often, if you combine a push day, one workout, and then a pull day for the next workout, you're not going to have the same repetitive movement pattern. So that's why a lot of people can train that way and function very well and recover fine from it. So I usually, if I'm doing push, pull, legs, that's usually the order that I go in. Now, if for some reason you want to do push, legs, and then pull, so be it. I mean, as long as you're training all your major muscle groups, it really doesn't matter what order you're doing them in. As long as you're hitting all major muscle groups, you're training in a progressive overload fashion, that's what's most important. So if you want to manipulate and put your leg day in between the push and the pull day, then, hey, go for it. Try it and see how it works for you. All right, let's see what else we've got. I'm Velo, says, "Lee, I need your help. I'd like to know more about concurrent training." All right, well, if you want to, I don't know if I understand the concept. Does concurrent training mean that, for example, I do 3 days with rep ranges of 10 and then 3 days with, for example, 6 reps? I'm not 100% sure what you mean by that. I would kind of need to see a sample program to really know what you're referring to. I mean, the concept of concurrent training, I've never heard that term before myself. Now, it's probably, again, I'm just kind of talking off the cuff here because I've never heard of that concept. But when it comes to weight training workouts, there is very little new stuff. What is mostly out there is reinventing and repackaging previous programs and making them sound like something new. So this is probably, again, if I'm just taking a guess off the top of my head, this is probably some sort of training that's probably a repackaged version of one that's probably already out there. Again, I'm going to just pass on this question because I don't know exactly what this style of training entails or anything like that. I mean, it's the first time I've heard of it. So we'll just move on and I'll try and answer another question that I'm more knowledgeable on. We have Jose joining us. Says he's a big fan from Brazil. Thank you for joining us, Jose. Glad to have you. There's a lot of questions. I'm Velo's asking a lot of questions about this concurrent training. And again, I don't know how to manipulate the volumes for this particular workout. I mean, I'll just read out his question. He says, also, I do change the volume depending on what rep range I choose. For example, on my push day, I start with chest. I do three exercises, 3 sets. That gives me a total volume of 18 sets for chest. I change the volume, for example, 9 sets for chest on my 10 rep days and less sets for my heavier days. Or do I just increase the weight and lower the reps? Okay, another question. Let's see. I tell you what, how about rather than me wasting more time here on the video chat, I mean, I would love to help you out, but I'm not 100% sure what you're asking. So send me a private message and I'll be happy. We can chat back and forth and I can elaborate on hopefully help you out more through a private message. So I'm going to try and get through a few more questions here before I clue up the video chat for the day. But I'm Vilo, I am VILO. Feel free to send me a private message and elaborate as much as you want, and I'll do my best to help you out that way. All right. Zeem is asking, saying, do you still support the lean hybrid program made by Elliot Hulse and Strength Camp? I haven't spoke to Elliot in quite a while, but I mean, I'm still a big fan of Elliot. I watch his videos. I don't watch them all, but I do watch several of them, and I am a big fan of his content. I mean, it is a solid program, but you know, it's not something that I've followed personally, or you know, I haven't done it in recent years. Put it that way. I mean, way back 2010, I was actually down trained in Florida with Elliot at the original Strength Camp gym, not the big one that he's got now, but the original one, when he was just kind of getting started on YouTube and everything else. As crazy as it is, I mean, his channel was smaller than mine back then, and then he just kind of took it and it's exploded. So now he's got way bigger channel than I do, which is crazy, but that's just the way it is. I mean, he does put a lot of work into his programs and into his videos. So, I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, and he's certainly doing a lot of good things out there. Synthetic Dose says, Lee, I'm having issues with bringing up the size of my forearms. I'm 6'5" and my whole body grows, but I have twig forearms. I do everything people tell me and no growth. All right. Have you tried grip training? And I don't mean like wrist curls and all that kind of stuff, but I mean just pure grip training to focus on building up your grip strength. That has been the single best thing that I found for increasing forearm size. The stronger your grip, it'll indirectly increase your forearm size. So that's what I would recommend you focus on. Heavy grips hand grippers are one tool that I definitely recommend. This is something that I started using back in 2004, heavy grips hand grippers. And within 3 months of using these, I added a full inch to my forearms. And I didn't do any wrist curls or anything like that during that time. It was just pure grip training. And I found that it was a missing link in my program, because I was doing your regular exercises. Like I was doing arm workouts, and I was doing, you know, direct forearm workouts in terms of wrist curls and reverse wrist curls, but it still didn't give me the same growth as focusing on pure grip strength. So that's what I would recommend. If your forearms are stubborn, focus on your grip. Get stronger grip, and you will see a huge improvement in forearm size. All right, what else we got? Ahmed Ali is joining us. It says, Lee, you build muscle and lose fat at the same time after a long layoff. Yes, you can. You can certainly build muscle and lose fat. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be after a layoff. You can do it anytime, provided your training and nutrition is correct. But you can definitely see more results if you were coming back after a layoff. And most of that is due to muscle memory, because it's a lot faster to regain lost muscle than it is to gain it in the first place. We have Operation Truth joining us, saying, Lee, great info. Enjoy your channel. Thank you for the feedback. Much appreciated. Cast Reel in Ketchen, AZ, says, how can I get my calves bigger? I have big thighs, but not my calves. Frequent calf workouts is what I'd recommend if you are struggling with the calves. So the way calf training is, it's very simple. You know, you only have a few basic exercises that you can do, because you're only, you know, extending your foot, pointing and flexing your foot. That's all calf training is. So you can do like a standing calf raise, a seated calf raise. You could probably do some other variations like a donkey calf raise or body calf raise, something like that. But I would recommend picking 1 or 2 calf raise variations and doing them every other day, and just do like a few sets of each. So frequent, short calf workouts. And the more frequently you can train, the better. So you just want to go in there, pump up the calves, stimulate them, and then let them rest and recover, and then pump them up and stimulate them again, rest and recover, and do that as often as you can. And I recommend start with 3 days a week and see how that works for you. And for most people, that will be a good time frame, because it'll allow you to have a full day of rest and recovery in between each calf workout. But again, you're still hitting them 3 days a week, which is fairly high frequency. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I want you to focus on quality over quantity. So when you're doing your calf raises, really focus on getting a full stretch, letting your heels sink all the way down so that you stretch out the calf fully in the bottom range of motion, and then come all the way up on your tippy toes and squeeze your calves hard at the top for a full peak contraction. And every single repetition, go through that exaggerated range of motion. I don't care if you get fewer reps this way, but the reps that you do get will be much more beneficial than if you're just doing like high reps in this short mid-range movement that a lot of people do. Like most guys with skinny calves, you watch them go over, they'll put like the whole stack on the standing calf raise machine. They'll get in there and they'll bounce up and down doing these little tiny mini calf raises where their heels are not going all the way down. They're not coming all the way up on their tippy toes. They're just doing these little bouncy calf raises in the middle with way too much weight. And they got twig calves. You know, nothing's happening. Now, they're saying, well, I'm lifting heavy, I'm training hard. And yeah, that's true. You are lifting heavy and you are training hard, but it's not training smart. So focus on the quality, not the quantity. Cut the weight in half, improve the repetitions, go through that full range of motion like I mentioned, and your calves will grow. I mean, they will respond if you train them properly. Now, the thing is, genetics do play a role. So I'm not saying that you're going to build like the biggest calves in the world, but regardless of your genetics, improvement is always possible if you're training properly. So give those tips a try, and I'm sure that within the next 6 weeks or so, you'll see an improvement in your calf development. Operation Truth has got a question here saying, what about dumbbell rows causing a hernia? I've seen a video on that. What is your thoughts? I actually have a blog post about hernias from working out, and potentially you could get a hernia from any exercise, I guess, if you're straining. But a lot of it has to do with stress. A lot of it has to do with your breathing and all that kind of stuff. So, and sometimes it's genetics. I mean, some people just have genetic weak spots in their, you know, their stomach lining or wherever they're getting the hernias to, and that's what causes the hernia. But I mean, as far as you know, a specific exercise causing it, I don't believe that. I mean, I think it's if you're doing the exercise properly, lifting within your means, breathing properly, the risk of you actually getting a hernia is kind of slim to none, unless you are genetically predisposed to having that. So just do a Google search for Lee Hayward hernia, and you should find my blog post that goes into a lot of detail. And I explain the different types of hernias, as well as some tips that you can follow to help prevent getting a hernia in your workouts. We have Tech Palm joining us, and he says, hey, Lee, love your videos. And he's from India. Thanks for tuning in. I'm sure it's either very late at night or very early in the morning over there. Your advice is very practical. Much love. All right. Thanks for the feedback and support. I do appreciate it. We have LT Lash Vicious. Could extremely heavy Zercher lifts cause any kind of elbow arm injuries in the long term? For example, a 500-pound Zercher holds and rack pulls. I think it could. I mean, any type of heavy lifting like that could cause some injuries. Bottom line, when it comes to injuries like that, is you want to listen to your body. And if you're getting any aches or pains, then that's your cue that you need to back off and try something different. So I would recommend probably cycling them. So, I mean, try doing a training phase with some heavy Zercher lifts. And for those of you who don't know what a Zercher lift is, it's basically holding the barbell in the crooks of your elbows. So like you could do like a Zercher squat where you just hold the barbell in the crook of your elbow and squat with it. It's kind of like a front squat variation in that sense. It's instead of the barbell across the front of your shoulders, it's in the crooks of your elbows, but the weight is in front of the body. Some people even do a Zercher lift off the floor where they, instead of grabbing the barbell with their hands, they hook it in the crooks of their elbows and lift it off the floor that way. That's a very extreme lift in terms of bending over at the waist in order to pick up the barbell, but again, it's just another lift variation. I used to do some Zercher squats from the power rack. I never did them off the floor, but I used to do some Zercher squats in the power rack back in the day when I was training for powerlifting. But it's not a very popular bodybuilding exercise. It's more of a strength/power exercise. So I didn't do it to the extent where I had any injuries or problems from the exercise, but I can see that if you're doing it on a regular basis, that it could possibly cause some problems. So you might want to just cycle it. So let's just say you're going to do Zercher lifts for say 3 or 4 weeks. And then if you're getting any aches or pains in the elbows, maybe switch to like front squats for a few weeks or a goblet squat for a few weeks. And even alternate that with back squats and different variations so that you're not overworking the movement pattern and overworking holding the barbell in the crooks of your elbows. I mean, that could cause pain over time. Another thing that I found very helpful as well is either wrapping a towel or something around the bar to just give you that little bit of cushion in the crooks of the elbows. I found that was very helpful, especially as you work up to heavier weight. But when it comes to injuries and stuff, you really have to listen to your body. And as soon as you're getting any sign of an ache or pain or something doesn't feel right, then you want to be proactive and not just kind of tough it out and work through the pain. Because when you do that, that's usually when a minor injury or a minor ache or pain can turn into a serious injury. So as long as you kind of are proactive, you can very often prevent anything serious from happening. All right, let's see what else we've got. We have Mohammed is joining us. He says, respect from Philly. Well, thanks, Mohammed. I'm glad you're tuning into the show. Orang Zayab, respect, sir. If we want to develop mass for legs, how many days should we work out per week? There's different types of programs, but I'm going to give you one that would be a very effective mass building leg program, and that is the 20 rep squat routine. And for this one, you would train your legs 3 days a week, but the volume is very low. Each workout is based around one all-out set of 20 rep squats. That's pretty much it. You basically just do a few progressively heavier warm-up sets, and then take a weight, rep it out for 20 reps, and each day you do that, you try and increase the weight by 5 pounds. So start off with a somewhat conservative weight for your first workout, and then each workout just add 5 pounds to the barbell. It doesn't sound like much, but it adds up, and you do that, say, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Now, if you can throw in some other exercises as well, I have a video on YouTube. If you do a search for Lee Hayward 20 rep squats, you'll see it. I like to do like a total body workout. So I'll start with the squats, and then I'll do some exercises for the upper body as well. And I basically do that 3 times a week. And I went through that phase doing the 20 rep squat program, and it was one of the most productive workout programs that I ever followed. I mean, I got bigger and stronger all over, but you will definitely notice an improvement in the legs for sure. So that's one that I would recommend. And you can train a body part frequently as long as you keep the volume under control. See, it really looks, you have to look at the total volume for the week. I mean, if you're doing a high volume workout, then obviously you can't train as frequently as if you're doing a low volume workout. So like you just look at the total volume for the week, like I said. So for example, if you're doing 20 sets per body part, then you might only be able to hit that body part once a week. If you're doing 10 sets per body part, then you might be able to hit it twice a week. If you're doing less than that, say like, 5 sets, you might be able to hit it 3 times a week or maybe even more. Again, it's the total volume for the week that you need to look at, not necessarily just the frequency. You need to look at the bigger picture and factor in all the different training variables in order to make an educated decision on the volume and the frequency of your workouts. All right, we have Mohammed's joining us again. He says, question, Lee, I'm fasting these days with a 4-hour window of eating simply a heavy meal at 8 p.m. or 2 small meals at 8 and 11. I'm afraid of losing my gains. What's your advice about diet? I'm assuming that you're going through Ramadan since you're fasting and you're worried about losing your gains. I get this question every year from people who practice Ramadan. And my advice is don't worry about it. Seriously, don't worry about it. It's 1 month. It's 1 month that you can look at as a deload for your body, because, I mean, you can back off the intensity of your workouts. You can use it as a detox for your system. And that's basically what Ramadan is meant to be. It's meant to cleanse your system. It's kind of like hitting the reset button on your body. So don't stress yourself out over it. Embrace it and go through it and give it, do the best Ramadan you can, or do the best fast you can. I wouldn't get hung up in the details of oh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my gains. I mean, if you're going through a period of fasting and you're only eating 1 or 2 meals a day, I mean, yeah, it's quite possible you're probably going to lose some gains. That's kind of inevitable. But the good news is you're going to quickly regain any lost gains once you get back to eating and training normally again. So don't worry about it. Think of this as like a deload for your body. It's a mental and physical reset. It's a good detox, and just enjoy the process. Enjoy the process of not having to eat as much food and be able to focus on other areas of your life. Enjoy the process of dedicating yourself to your religious practice and everything else. I mean, just don't worry about bodybuilding. Bodybuilding is always going to be there. And as soon as you finish with your fast, you can get back on to a 6 meal a day bodybuilding bro diet and bro workout and everything else, and regain any lost mass that you happen to lose during Ramadan. And it's not that big a deal. In the greater scheme of things, it's just 1 month, right? I mean, you're going to flatten out a little bit over that month, and then as soon as you get back to normal, you're going to fill back out again. And chances are, once you start back to normal training and eating again, your body's going to respond even better because it went through a depletion phase and a recovery phase through Ramadan. So I think you would actually make better gains once you get back to eating and training normally again afterwards. So it's kind of like 1 step forward and then 2 steps, or sorry, 1 step back and 2 steps forward. That's what I meant to say. So again, don't worry about it. Just go with it and look at it as like it's just a little bump in the road. That's all in terms of your gains. It's not going to hinder your progress over the long term. We have Gil joining us. Gil Grissom. Lee, if you could give one advice about nutrition for people who want to bodybuild, which one would you say is a must to remember daily? Well, if you could give one piece of advice about nutrition for bodybuilding, what would be the must to remember daily? Okay. I'm going to, it might not be the answer you're looking for here, but I'm going to break it down to something very simple. Focus on your next meal. Just focus on making your next meal as good as you can. That's it. And when you eat that next meal, try and have a well-balanced plate. 1/3 protein, 1/3 carbohydrates, 1/3 vegetables. And just focus on the next meal. If you do that over and over again, just constantly focusing on your next meal, you'll move yourself in the right direction. Like, a lot of people get hung up on, oh, what's my calorie supposed to be for the day? Or what's my macro supposed to be for the day? Or should I do this and should I do that? Like, it can be overwhelming sometimes. But if you just break it down and focus on that next meal, don't get overwhelmed with, oh, well, what's my calorie totals for the day? Or what's my calorie totals for the week? Just focus on making the very next meal that you eat the best that you can. And then once you've had that one, then make the meal after that your best meal. And just take it 1 meal at a time. And I think that's the best piece of nutrition advice that I could give you, is just focus on making the next meal your best meal. And if you do that over and over again, you're going to move yourself in the right direction towards your fitness and bodybuilding goals. All right, I'm going to get ready and clue this up. I know I always go over an hour with these video chats, and that's okay. I don't mind doing that. So again, thanks for tuning in, guys. I know I didn't answer everybody's question, but that's just the way it is. I always usually run out of time before I run out of questions. But again, thank you so much for tuning in, and thanks for all the comments and support. I really do appreciate it. I look forward to these video chats with you each week, and obviously I'm sure you guys do as well, or you wouldn't be tuning into them. So as always, what I'm going to do is post the replay of this video chat, and I will have the timestamps down in the description below so that you can go through them and look for the specific questions that interest you the most. And in the meantime, have yourself a fantastic weekend, and I look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care. Over and out.